It's a pleasure to have you guys here. So we want to talk about if you have a business and you want to grow it, we want to talk about the methods, the strategies that you could utilize to take a business from one location to multiple locations. If you are a business owner, you probably started your business with a lot of pain. It is a lot of pain to start the business, a lot of pain to grow the business. It's a lot of pain to operate the business. So the question you ask yourself is, why did I start this business? What's the purpose of starting the business? Was the purpose just to have one location to pay the bills? Because that is all the business does. If it's a single location business, all it does is pays your bills. With all due respect to all the business owners in this room, if you have a single location business, you merely have a job with a lot of headaches, with a lot of stress, with a lot of liability. As a matter of fact, if you have a job, you're probably going to get a raise every year. In a business, you probably don't. The costs are going up. Every single day you own your business, you realize that you're working harder and harder, and yet you're bringing less money home. Why? Because this is the cost where you sell your product. This is the cost that it costs you to produce the product. Let's talk about chicken wings. You have a restaurant. You buy the wings at, let's say, $5 for a dozen, and you sell the wings for $20 for a dozen. Now you have expenses for rent, payroll, insurance, maintenance, and everything else. So the difference between the top and bottom is your profit level. What happens is year after year, the bottom part, which is your cost, which is the cost of operation, which is payroll, which is rent, which is everything that's required to run a business, it's going higher and higher and higher. The top part, which is the price of chicken wings or whatever you're charging, cannot be determined by you. It's determined by the consumer and the competitor. In other words, if your competitor down the street is selling it for $20, you can't raise yours to $30. Or if you can't raise the price just because your costs are going up to $50. Nobody was going to pay $50 for 12 wings. So for that reason, the price of selling is determined by the consumer and by the competitor, not by you. So this cost is, your costs are going up, this cost isn't going up, your profit is getting smaller and smaller. You think to yourself, what do I do? How do I keep on bringing more money? Inflation is going up, your costs at home are going up, you're bringing the same and less money, and yet your costs are going up. So what do? Okay, I'm going to open a second location. Now, when you think about a second location, you say to yourself, I can do this on my own. I don't think I'm ready for other strategies like franchising. And here's where the pain begins. So you start thinking about the second location being, I open it on my own, or should I franchise my business and grow it? So let's talk about franchising. Before we dive into which method is better, let's talk about franchising. What is a franchise? A franchise is a system. You have a business, you have a brand. Someone comes to you and says, I like what you're doing. I like what you're selling. I like your gym. I like your urgent care center. I like your home care business. Whatever it is, I like what you have. I don't want to go through the pains you went through to start this business. I want to learn everything from you, and I want to do exactly what you have done in my city, in my location. In other words, I want to duplicate your business and run it under your brand. So that's called a franchise. So for that, they'll pay you a franchise fee up front. That fee is usually between $35,000 to $60,000. The sweet spot these days is about $50K. So somebody that wants to open a business just like yours cuts you a check for $50,000. Then they'll go off and find the location. They'll go off, do the build out, get the contractor, get the permits, hire the employees, do the grand opening, and then buy the products and start the business based on the instructions you give them in the operations manual, as well as the training you provide for them. Once they start the business, they run the business on a daily basis on their own, and they generate sales. From those sales, they pay you what's called a royalty. That royalty is somewhere between 5 to 7%, sometimes higher, not often anything lower than 5%. So if your business is doing, let's say, $1 million a year, you're collecting roughly $70,000 a year of royalty. The royalty is paid usually on a weekly basis. So also, if they are buying products from a third party for the operation of this business, if they have to buy cleaning equipment, if they have to buy restaurant, whatever it is that they have to purchase, they purchase it either from you, which you profit from it, or they buy it from a third-party vendor, which you tell them where to buy it from, and you get a rebate from them. So you make money in three ways: franchise fee up front, royalty, rebates. That is how franchising is run. So now that we understand franchising, and each franchisee is responsible for their business. In other words, you're not running the business on a day-to-day basis. So now that we understand the difference between the two, let's talk about, let me stand here, you guys can see this. Let's talk about each advantage and disadvantage of each method. In other words, grow it on my own or franchise it and grow it through franchising. If you grow it on your own, you have a much smaller growth speed. Why? Because you can only open one more in the next 2 years. You can't open 5 more next year. I'm talking about a restaurant, the most common franchises. But franchises are in every sector, in every industry. But if it's a restaurant, think about it. There's no way you can open more than one in the next 2 years. In franchising, because each person is operating their own franchise, it's almost like one more person like you. That person is responsible for that operation. And for that reason, you could literally grow 10, 15, 20 locations or even more per year. So the growth is much slower on the corporate side. It requires capital. So if you were to open a second location, let's assume it's a gym, it's a restaurant, or whatever it is, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of your money is getting tied up. You're not going to put that capital out. You're going to go to a bank and get that loan. Well, that loan that you get is going to be most likely personally guaranteed by you. That means you now are owning that liability. It's very time consuming, right? So you're already working incredibly hard in your business and now you're opening a second location. There's a lot of things to do. You have to find a location. You have to hire a general contractor. You have to go get all the permits and the architect just to open the location, right? So now franchising, they are doing this all on their own without anything to do with you. You could be in bed, sleep, and somebody's working hard to open a second location of your business. Each location that you open cannot be operated by you. You can only be in one place at a time, unless you guys have a time machine. So since you're in one place at a time, the second location has to be operated by a manager. For that manager that's operating that second location doesn't really care about the business like you do. Why? Because he doesn't have a vested interest in the business. He doesn't have money involved. He doesn't have time involved. He's looking at the 5 o'clock so he can go home. So we call that a 9 to 5 timer. That's what it is. You as the business owner, you're a 9 to 9er, 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. Because you put your head on the pillow, you're still thinking about your business. What am I going to do the next day? The employee that goes home at 5 o'clock, they're done. They clocked out. So that means at the site, when they're dealing with that customer, they don't really care. If they have to scream at a customer, turn their back on the customer, they will do that. And then what's the worst thing that can happen? You fire them. They go get another job. And for that reason, the operation is not run as clean as your own store. Meaning that now you're going to get bad reviews in the second location. Remember, it's the same brand. So those bad reviews are not coming to your location. And your entire sales are going down. It's incredibly important to understand this. In franchising, each person is involved. It's their own business. They're running it just like you do. They care about it because they have two things involved that makes you love your business, and that is time and money. They've spent time and they've spent their money, and for that reason, they care about their business very much. And they're not going to get bad reviews, because if they do get bad reviews, you have an opportunity to slap their hand and potentially take their franchise away from them. Risk of damaging your brand. As you get these bad reviews because the other guy doesn't care, there's a potential damage to your brand. There's a real misunderstanding about franchising damaging a brand. It doesn't. Oh, I'm not giving my brand to a third party. I have no idea who this guy is or who this girl is, and they're going to damage my brand. They're not going to damage your brand because they paid heavily for this franchise to purchase it. Who's going to damage your brand is that manager who doesn't really care. You have a lot of liability owned from each location that you sign up. You're signing a lease that's personally guaranteed. You're signing a bank loan that is personally guaranteed. Every single day that you go to work and something may happen to that somebody, to a client or something, falling or something like that, you are directly responsible. That is your liability. Where in franchising, franchisee owns all the liabilities. You don't own any of the liability whatsoever. It is all on the franchisee. And then operational headaches. Every location that you open has an operational headache involved, right? Every single day you're operating the business. Where again, in franchising, you have a person that is going through those headaches. Also, if you were to open a location in another city, call it, let's assume you have your first location here in Miami, and your second location you want to open is in another city. You have no idea about the localized marketing and culture of that city. If you ask me where is the best place to put a billboard in Miami to advertise my business, I can tell you exactly the highest traffic areas. But if you now ask me that same question for Los Angeles or for another city in Tampa, I have no idea. What do I know? But a local franchisee who lives there actually understands that. So marketing becomes a lot more efficient and easier for these franchisees. So now you may ask a question, all right, let's assume I franchise my business. Why would anybody buy my franchise? What do I have for someone else? Like I had at one time someone that had a car wash business asked me the same question. Why would somebody buy a car wash franchise and pay me $50,000? Why would they not do this on their own? Everybody knows how to wash cars. The answer is very simple. If I were to talk about a car wash business, if I were to start a car wash business on my own, what do I have to do? I have to come up with a name first. Well, that name may be taken. I now may be infringing on somebody's trademark. So I got to do if I'm doing this right, I got to do a trademark research. Make sure that the name is available. Then once I have the name, then I got to go hire a graphic designer, come up with the logo. All right, he comes up with the logo. Now I got to go do a website. All of this is work. You do the website, iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, weeks are going by, you're chasing the guy, hey, listen, I need my website finally up and running. Website goes up. It has no authority on Google. It's a brand new website. It takes 6 months for Google to even recognize it. Now I have no social media. By social media, you get it started and it has 0 followers. You got to start from scratch. All of this just to start the business. Once you start the business, now you have no idea what to charge your clients. You don't know where to open the location. You don't know any of this. All of this results in time and money wasted. People rather buy a franchise so they don't make the same mistakes that you potentially have already made. Now, the Chamber of Commerce provides a very interesting graph that you see behind me. Chamber of Commerce tells us that if you start a business, you have a 50-50 chance that you'll be in business a year from now. 12 months from now, it's very likely that you are out of business. In other words, 50% of businesses that start today, you won't see them a year from now. They're gone, right? And if you look at 5 years out, that number is 75%. In other words, 75% of businesses would be bankrupt that started today. Now, turn that around and look at franchises. Franchises, 92% will be around 5 years from now. 92%. As a matter of fact, it's almost impossible for a franchise to go, yes, they do close, even McDonald's sometimes closes, but it is very, very unlikely. So you're running a huge risk of opening a location on your own rather than on the franchise side. That's the reason why people buy a franchise. So let's talk about some misunderstandings about the franchise world, right? Some of the questions that always come up. I'm a consultant to over 700 companies, 750 companies I've consulted for, and turned them into franchises and grown them, right? So one of the first things that people ask me is, I've only been in business for a couple of years. I don't think my business is ready for franchising. And the answer that I give them is the following. Do you guys recognize some of these brands? Let me stand here. So you're looking at, everybody knows Orange Theory Fitness. They started franchising in the same year that they opened the business. As a matter of fact, a couple months later, we're going to touch on that. We're going to talk about the history of that in a little bit. 1,527 franchises. Tropical Smoothie. Everybody knows this brand, right? They started franchising after only a few months being in business. And they now have over 1,000 locations. UPS Stores, Massage Envy. It's estimated to be $1 billion business. They actually didn't, the location wasn't almost open before, when they started franchising. So this right here tells you that you don't need to be in business for many, many years before you start franchising. The next question that comes up is, I may need to rebrand my business. I started this business, I wasn't really thinking about expansion and growth, and therefore I didn't really trademark it. And now I realize somebody else has this trademark and it kind of stinks. And to be frank with you, having consulted for so many companies, I can tell you this happens all the time, where you started a business, you didn't think about growth, and then 3 years later you're thinking about expansion, and then you realize somebody else started a business somewhere else under the same brand, and now they're a lot bigger than you, and they did trademark. So now you have a problem. I will tell you not to worry. There is a brand that I'm showing you here that I guarantee you every single person here would recognize. So Fred DeLuca, who started not Subway, but Pete's Super Submarines, in 1965 borrowed $1,000 from his family friend and Peter Buck. And Peter Buck gave him $1,000 not to open a sub sandwich shop, but to go to medical school. He realized that $1,000 isn't going to get him through medical school, so he opened a sub shop with it to generate more money to pay for his medical school. Between 65 and 74, when he actually finally franchised, in those years, he actually changed the name a few times because of the problems that we talked about, right? And finally, what was franchised is a store that looked like that, right? And it was Pete's Subway. What I'm trying to tell you is the Subway you see today, it was not the Subway that was franchised. What he franchised is what he had, not what he wished he had. He franchised the business in the shape and format that it was, a pretty ugly business. But then as the years went on, he changed the look of the business to what it is today. You can do the same thing. That is not a problem at all. I'm waiting to open a second or third location. All right, let's talk about that one more time. Sometimes people say I have to have multiple locations. By the way, we all know the McDonald's story. We saw the movie, right? One location. But let's talk about the second location. If you commit to opening a second location on your own before you franchise, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have to, once again, we're going to have to go get a loan. We have to sign all the documents, go in debt up to your neck in another $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And now you're going out finding a location. Now you're going out doing the permitting. Now you're going out talking to these contractors that never return your calls and they don't show up on time. You're doing all of that to finally open your location. 6 months, 9 months, depending on what business you have, your location is up and running. Great. Now, that location that just opened, it's no different than a baby that was just born. If you have an older son or daughter, he or she doesn't need you to tie his shoes. He can pour himself his breakfast cereal in the morning. He can probably go to the street and get the bus and go to school. The little baby is the one that's crying for attention. I want milk, I want my diaper changed, I'm crying because I have nothing else to do, whatever it is. And it's always constantly grabbing your attention. A new business does exactly the same thing. It's a brand new baby. So you're going to have to spend all of your time and attention on this second location. What do you think is going to happen? The second location that's not even making money. You're probably losing money in year one or even potentially year two. What is going to happen is you only have so many hours in the day. So now you're spending all the time in something that's not generating money for you. You're foregoing the first location that was actually making money. So now you go home and you want to pull your hair out because you were making X and now you're making a lot less than X and you're working double as hard. And this is the problem with a lot of business owners when they start a business. And again, the bad reviews begin to come in because, because you let go of the attention you were paying to the first location. All right, I don't want to expose my recipes or my secrets to my products or services. I use a particular product for cleaning. I use a particular product that does this magic thing. And I don't want my franchisees to be exposed to the source of that product. And now you know the recipe is out, my secret is out. Well, I have news for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you have employees today, those are the people that you have to worry about because they know everything you know because they're using the product. They're serving the product if it's a restaurant. Whatever it is, they know more about it. And employees don't have a contract that they've signed. In other words, there is no NDA or non-compete or any of that, meaning that employees can leave and do exact same thing as yours, copy yours, and this happens every single day. So don't worry about your franchisees who've signed a very thick document that includes NDAs and non-competes. Worry about your employees that you have today because they can do exactly that. Damaging your brand. Oh, this is a common thing. You know, I don't want all of these people, random people, to buy my franchise, grow this business all over the place, and then operate the business in a wrong way, and then my brand gets damaged. I'm like, yeah, you mean like McDonald's or Subway or Wendy's or Massage Envy? Or which one of these brands got damaged? All of these brands were created because of franchising. Had McDonald's not listened to Ray Kroc the day he visited them, the two brothers, today you and I would be talking about McWho. What is McDonald's? The only reason we know what McDonald's is because they franchised. Franchising creates branding. Franchising doesn't destroy branding. This is extremely important. I want to change a few things before I franchise. I still haven't done what I wanted to do. I still have a little changes I want to make to the business. I don't have all the systems in place. Well, look, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're never ready. We're never satisfied. It's never finished. The job is always there. We want to do this. We want to do that. I guarantee you 5 years later, you're still not completely happy that you're there where you want to be. Once again, I want to point to this brand that everybody recognizes. What was franchised is what they had, not what they wished they had. This is what they wished they had, but they got it. And they got it with what we call OPM, other people's money. In franchising, they're paying you. You take that money, $50,000, and you use that money to do this from that for somebody else's money. And that's what franchising can do for you. I want to give you a few examples. These are some of the companies that I personally have worked with. So I want to give you a few short stories here. My first story starts with a husband and wife that really, literally, both of them had lost their jobs in the same week, and they were frustrated. What did they do? They took every single dollar out of their bank account, piggy bank. They ran to a local dollar store. They bought all the equipment they needed to make French fries out of their oven at home for their family and friends and social media friends and whatever they had. They gained enough money from that little bitty business, and they kept on saving it until they were able to open their first location in Los Angeles. They franchised their business, and within 2 years have grown to 36 locations. That business, ladies and gentlemen, is worth tens of millions of dollars. My second story is with another husband and wife from Miami. These are immigrants from Miami that started an insurance agency, one of those insurance agencies in strip malls that you see. And these people did that because they had some insurance background. That company, they franchised immediately. And with the franchise that they launched, they grew to 120 locations in 4 years. That business, ladies and gentlemen, is worth tens of millions of dollars. My third story is another husband and wife out of New York City with 2 or 3 locations of a waxing center, sugaring, waxing, right? And these guys franchised their business shortly after starting these businesses. In 4 years, they have grown to 220 locations. They have gained tens of millions of dollars in wealth from franchising. Here's some other examples here. You have the Strickland Brothers Oil Change, 175 locations in 4 years. Augusta Lawn Care, 150 locations in 4 years. On and on and on. This company here got actually purchased after 4 years for tens of millions of dollars. Franchising creates wealth for you, ladies and gentlemen. These are some of my personal brands that I launched myself. I launched a brand within 2 months. I franchised it as a child safety franchise that I launched here back in 2005. It grew to 175 locations in 11 countries in 5 years, and it was actually bought out. And this brand, we started this in the middle of the pandemic, and within 2.5 years, we have sold over 210 franchises. It's ranked #1 in Entrepreneur Magazine, and it's among the top 50 fastest growing franchises. So I want to talk about a brand that, again, you guys recognize very well. It's called Orange Theory. So Elin Latham, she's the founder. She was actually a fitness instructor at a spa. She lost her job. When she lost her job, she came home and she said, I'm done with this. I'm starting something of my own. She utilized her garage to teach Pilates. So she put Pilates classes in her garage. After some time of saving money, she opened her first location, called it Orange Theory. That was in 2010. She immediately franchised the business. Today, ladies and gentlemen, that business, actually her net worth, Elon's net worth is over $200 million. All of this created from this concept called franchising. So the last thing, my last slide here really is meant for business owners to understand where you stand. If you have a single location or even 2 locations, have you planted your flag on this earth? Have you done something extraordinary? Have you done something that you will be remembered forever? I know McDonald's did. I know Subway did. I know a lot of brands like Massage Envy did. I know Elon did with her Orange Theory. Have you planted your flag by creating something extraordinary? There are roughly 30 million businesses in the United States. If you have a business, all right, you're among the 30 million people on earth, in the country. It's a good thing, but it's not extraordinary. What is extraordinary is to be 1 in 6,000. That is extraordinary because there's only 6,000 brands of franchising in the world, and to be one of 6,000 in a country of 300 million or in the world of 7 billion people, that to me, ladies and gentlemen, is extraordinary. Thank you very much.